I'm going to tell you something, boys. Will Levis, I'm telling you, he's the next coming of Warren Moon for this team.
Oh, man, no. You improve his wide receivers. You improve his offensive line. And what does he do for you?
It is the greatest day of the season. The first Sunday of football games in the NFL.
Yeah, week 1. Almost in the books. We got one more game tomorrow night as we record this on Sunday evening. But I am just feeling so at peace. The world is right. Football is back. Everything just smells different. The air is nice. The sun is shining. And we have football back on our televisions, man. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, it's great.
Oh, you love to see it.
Guys, this is Athletically Declined. As always, Jet Boyer, Spencer, Roland Nolan, Mr. Fantasy. We are here, Houston, on the ESPN 97.5 Houston YouTube channel. And before we get going, guys, as always, we want to go ahead and get all of our partners out of the way real quick and tell you guys about all the great people that we are connected with. And today, as you can see, we're in a little different room, another spot here at the Sanctuary Gym over here in Friendswood, Texas. You guys want to come check that out. They have absolutely phenomenal gym. You guys looking to get in shape, get fit, want to come check it out. Great pricing, 24-hour, open 24 hours. Really, really awesome. Got some really cool new stuff that they're putting in here too. Always upgrading. Shout out to our guys, Sold Out. You guys check them out at Sold Out, SOLED out, FTX.com. If you guys are looking for kicks, looking for the latest in apparel drops, you guys can check out Throwed, one of our partners on their apparel. They're super awesome. And also too, it is still baseball season. And if you guys are looking to get you guys some gear for your team, or maybe just really into really good apparel, go check out Baseballism and use code 8015 off. But now we got that out of the way. Let's talk about your Houston Texans picking up the dub in Lucas Oil Stadium, a season where you're opening up in a very fierce rivalry match and a tougher Colts team, I would say, than what probably most people wanted to give them credit for.
Yeah, I think going into the season, it was all the talk about CJ Stroud running his mouth and all the Colts players on defense not really liking that. EJ Speed. At least CJ got the chance to back it up, and he did that today. 29-27, the Texans are victorious. I will say this. I had one thought today. This was a place, and you mentioned it, Lucas Oil Stadium is one of the hardest places to play for the Texans historically. This feels truly, if you didn't know we were already in a new era with D'Amico Ryans and CJ Stroud, allow the fact that they are undefeated in Indianapolis as a unit. Let that just kind of sink in, because we're used to, at least me going way back, when we were going through the David Carr, Matt Schaub days, it took us forever to win one time in Indianapolis. I believe it was until the 6th or 7th year of the franchise existence that they got that win there. It took them a long time. So the fact that we are now at a point where they are undefeated in Indianapolis, week 18 and week 1 this year, it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling. A lot to discuss within it, though, but that is my overall best feeling. I love that we own Indy now.
Yeah, and I mean, to piggybacking off what you said, CJ Stroud, 24 for 32, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. I mean, he
was very close to throwing multiple interceptions, though.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, I mean, again, a game where you look at the stat line and you're not going to be upset with that.
Not at all.
But I think the star of this show on the Texans side has to be newly acquired Joe Mixon, putting on an absolute show. And also, who would have thought that coming into game 1, knowing what we do about CJ Stroud and his success through the air last year, that we were going to see them run the ball 30 times?
Yeah, the thing that the Texans lacked last year was this element of a run game, right? Devin Singletary's now moved on to the Giants, but him and Dameon Pierce last year together, they kind of just were patchwork to get the job done. Neither of them really excelled at the position. As we like to commonly refer to guys like this, they were Jags. They were Jags, which
just a guy.
It stands for just a guy. We love to throw that term around at AD. But these were two Jags, and now you replace it with a guy who's actually a very talented runner.
Yeah.
He's one of the best pass-catching running backs in the NFL. We didn't get to see a whole lot of that today, 3 for 19, but we'll see more of that in the coming weeks, especially if they get into a game script where they fall down. They were up for a lot of this game today, but yeah, that is the big difference. Imagine looking at the team last year. They were great throwing the ball, but they had very, very huge weaknesses on the running game. And you add in Joe Mixon. If we get that same level of offense from last year, you add Stephon Diggs, we're looking at what should be a unit that no one can stop if they're clicking. Seriously, there's not a single defense that if all of these guys are clicking, you've got 3 guys that could be wide receiver ones.
Yep.
You've got a top, I don't know, we'll just be conservative. I'll say top 15. Maybe you say top 10. I say top 15 running back at the least. And then we have a top 5 quarterback. If all 3 of those things are clicking on the same day, no one's stopping this team. This is going to be one of the best teams in football.
Yeah, no, you're 100% right. Texans are as advertised, and now as we're talking about here, you add another element into the game that they can pull from. I mean, Bobby Slowick. I know there's a lot to be said on the positive side of Bobby, and we can drool over him all the time, but there needs to be like some props given to the fact that often the blocking scheme today for Mixon was beautiful. Yeah. Like, that's not something I typically really like harp on, look at, and pay attention to that detail. But there were so many times where the holes in the lanes that these guys were giving Mixon was, he probably could have broken off 2 or 3 over 25, 30-yard runs, if not to the house. But he tripped on his feet a few times. And I know some people were saying they just put, I believe, new turf in Lucas Oil. Yeah. And so because of that was
there was a lot of slipping going on today. Yeah.
But if that wasn't the case, we could have seen Joe Mixon maybe with 3 touchdowns and over 200 yards.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
I want to give a shout out to first round pick Kenyon Green. Very tough start to his career with the injuries and subpar play. He started this game, and he was moving Indianapolis up front in the run game.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those Joe Mixon runs you were talking about was to the left, running off of Laramie Tunsil and Kenyon Green. That is very, very, very good to see, because that was a draft pick that many Texans fans have talked about that should have been where they selected Kyle Hamilton, who then went the following pick to the Ravens. Instead, we got a guard who up until this point was a disappointment.
Right.
Very encouraging to see Kenyon Green have a good game, moving guys. Would love to see that continue to be what we see from him as the season goes on, especially because if we get that, we're going to get even bigger Joe Mixon games as the season rolls on.
Yeah, and I'll say this, Kurt, give me your opinion on this, Spence. I didn't like, again, this is not a bad defense. It's not a great defense, in my opinion. But they got to CJ a lot more than you probably want to see. I believe it was, 3.5 sacks, I think is what they registered with. And again, DeForest Buckner, I know I think he was 1.5. And that's always going to be a guy that's going to be tough to stop. But I think, first game of the year, tough place, rivalry game, a lot of emotion, a lot of adrenaline. My biggest takeaway on the Colts side, though, Anthony Richardson, I'm going to see how to say this properly.
9 for 19, 212, 2 touchdowns and an interception. Also added 1 on the ground.
He did what needed to be done to get to win the game. But Anthony Richardson, just because he got the win and has 2 touchdowns, it wasn't a clean game. I'm a big believer in Anthony Richardson, and I don't think that we need to sit there and immediately say Anthony Richardson's a bust by any means. We also need to remember he played 3-4 games last year before he got hurt.
Oh, the amount of someone tweeted it over the weekend. I'd have to go look it up. I think he's had 18 starts his entire career, and this is dating back to high school.
Yeah. So with that all being said, the fact that he was in this game up until the end is at a positive standpoint from an interception to touchdown ratio, has 1 on the ground. Credit to either to Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson, because you wouldn't expect that from a guy like this, in my opinion, like given what you just talked about. Like, I just, it kind of is a conundrum to me almost that they were able to keep him as controlled. Because again, 9 for 19, that's not good.
No, that's below 50. And in the NFL, if you're not hitting at least 50, there's a massive problem.
In 125 of those yards going to Alex Pierce, 2 of those were 50-yard bombs. So, like, really, and you could really say that could go either way, because I believe only one of them was into single coverage. I think the first one was into double coverage.
Yeah, here's my thing on Anthony Richardson. At least through 1 week of the 24 season, I get the impression that this is a guy, if you have him on your fantasy football team, you love your life. He's going to rip long bombs. He's going to run the ball. He'll score touchdowns. He will score fantasy points for your team. However, I'm not sure if that style of play is one that replicates to real life football wins, right? We saw a very similar type of situation happen with Justin Fields. Great player in fantasy.
Yeah.
Not so much, in the real life. He'll put up numbers. He'll produce for you. The numbers will look good, but the wins will be lacking. And I think as of now, that's the impression I get with AR. But I will say this also. Some of the throws, some of the runs, they were special looking. He still flashes that. And there's a reason why, that coming out of that draft class, there's a reason why I personally had him over Bryce Young. I liked a lot of these physical tools that he is showing. I think Anthony Richardson will be fine. And I truthfully, I do think that we're going to see Stroud and Richardson battle it out in this division for a long time. But nonetheless, there's a lot of things in the passing department as a passer that Anthony Richardson needs to improve on.
Yeah, and the good thing for Anthony Richardson is that he has a guy who's familiar with those issues, because Shane Steichen obviously is where you want to credit somebody with fixing Jalen Hurts. That's who you're looking to. And Jalen Hurts had some similar issues, not all the same, but again, like very underdeveloped, didn't know what he was going to have. Whenever he got his starts, and was I know we got A-Train in here running production. I know Alex is super familiar with what Steichen did with Hurts, one of our resident Eagles fans. But I think if you're a Colts fan, you're like hoping that you can turn Anthony Richardson into a Jalen Hurts. And again, like, as you said, like, that doesn't always turn into wins. Like, yes, they made a Super Bowl, but again, like, Jalen Hurts has been very up and down. I mean, it hasn't been all roses and butterflies for him in his career as a passer, as just a football player in general. So, yeah, I think, again, at the end of the day, AR is going to be fine. I agree. I believe in the potential. I had him over Stroud and over Bryce Young. Had Stroud number 2 whenever they came out the first year of AD. But yeah, one question before we move on from here, I wanted to ask you, or actually I guess 2, because we didn't touch on this. Are you concerned with Jonathan Taylor's production here?
No. If from the Texans standpoint, I did want to mention that. It's another thing too to kind of signify that we're in a new era potentially. Right. This is the first time in the entire. This is like the first time in Jonathan Taylor's entire career that the Texans contained him.
Right.
Before this, we had 4 straight games against the Texans where Jonathan Taylor rushed for 140 yards plus. Today, he only got 48 yards on 16 carries, a 3.0 average. You love that all day long from the Texans defense. Now, as far as Jonathan Taylor's outlook, if we're talking about like fantasy football or season long, Jonathan Taylor to me showed that he's still a very talented running back today. He had some good runs. I think it was just a matter of a lot of that came down to the Texans were going to decide they wanted AR to beat them with his arm. And they were content to stuff the box and wait for, Anthony Richardson to try to let it loose. And that was how they kind of got it done there towards the end.
Yeah. My last comment I'll have on here is, I mean, it's very obvious there's a clear difference between obviously quarterback and what I'm about to say, and also too, both Texas receivers that were drafted this year. A.D. Mitchell, 1 reception for 2 yards. How do you feel about that? He was targeted 5 times. Are you chalking that up just to the fact that this was a tough game? AR's coming back after not playing in however many games it was. What was I guess it would have been 15 or.
I'm mainly just concerned with the fact that I don't think Anthony Richardson's only going to complete 9 passes every game.
Right.
But my concern is what's going to be the average amount of completions he gets per game. Because I said it before the season, this is going to be a run first team. For the Colts to be successful, they need to be a run first team.
Right.
They need to lean on their RPO game, but they need to be a team that primarily produces by getting on the ground, right? Jonathan Taylor, Anthony Richardson play to their strengths. I know they just paid Michael Pittman, but the reality is that the pass game for them is going to be just intermediate stuff. I know the deep bombs with Alec Pierce were working today, but I just have to believe both of those to Alec Pierce. Jimmy Ward had himself a tough day. If you want to look for any kind of downside with how the Texans play, Jimmy Ward had a rough day. I'm not sure after this week that those deep shots are there for AR. So get back to running the ball with Jonathan Taylor, with Anthony Richardson and the RPO. The Colts will be fine. I still think they'll be in the mix for the AFC South.
Yeah, I agree. I think also too, talking about Michael Pittman, it's not like they didn't try to get him involved. I mean, 8 targets. He was the number 1 targeted receiver today for the Colts. But yeah, I mean, good day to be a Houston Texans fan. Good day to be a Houston sports fan.
Yep. The Texans sit alone atop the AFC South.
Yes, they do. You know what? Why don't we just stay in that same vein with the AFC South? Let's talk about the Miami and Jacksonville game. A game that Jacksonville, to me, should have won. Multiple opportunities. I mean, just seems like kind of, if to me at this point for Trevor Lawrence, if you could have a catchphrase for his career, it's could have closed.
Yeah, they were up 17-7 at half. And then proceeded to get shut out in the second half as Miami mounted their comeback. To me, the storyline from this game, we know what kind of the Jaguars are at this point. I will say shout out to Brian Thomas, the rookie wide receiver.
Looked good.
Caught a touchdown. He looks good. But to me, there's no other storyline from this game that we need to discuss other than Tyreek Hill giving us what I truly believe is going to be an all-time moment in NFL history, because we're talking about an all-time player hitting what will go down as his most iconic touchdown celebration of all time. If you missed it, this morning on the way to the game, Tyreek Hill was detained, not arrested, was detained, and Calais Campbell was detained in front of Miami Stadium due to traffic violations. Calais Campbell came to defuse the situation, was also detained whenever he saw that Tyreek Hill was, talking to the police. So that all got sorted out. It was all this big kerfuffle start NFL Sunday morning. I really had the thought, I was like, the NFL is just beginning. It's week 1, and we're already getting storylines that we would see in week 8, week 9. It's already happening. I love it. You love to see it. But he scores a touchdown, an 80-yard bomb. Tyreek Hill, hashtag good at football if you didn't know. As soon as he gets to the end zone, he puts his hands behind his back, and Jalen Waddle comes over and escorts him to jail. It was an amazing touchdown celebration that will go down in the ethers of history in the NFL. I was giddy. I was cracking up whenever that happened. That was an all-time moment in NFL history that we saw today in that game.
Yeah, and if you guys, hopefully you guys are subscribed to Athletically Declined Sports on YouTube, and you guys want to go check out 3-Man Rush. Here's a little teaser for you. It might be really easy for Spence on one of his topics next week to find what he's looking for, and I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah,
you
that's
can
right.
Check it out. One thing I want to note that I think is wild to me. So we just talked about the Texans game and how Mixon rushed for 30 times today, him alone. The entire Dolphins running back crew, everyone who got a carry, rushed total. They rushed the ball total for 25 times today. I mean, it's just funny to me. I mean, you've got teams that they'll mix it up and they'll, okay, we're going to run the ball to open up the pass game. Miami doesn't care because they say we have freaking Waddle on one side and we've got Tyreek Hill on the other side, and they're good for 100 yards every game. And guess what? They picked up where they left off last year, and they both got over 100 yards.
Yeah, that's easily, to me, the best duo in the NFL is Tyreek and Jalen Waddle to me. And then their running back duo, Devon Achane, Raheem Mostert, a very good duo. Today they got it done in the passing game more so than the run game. Very kind of pedestrian average, 2.4 per carry for Achane, 1.5 for Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
Raheem Mostert, not the best day at the office, but he will have better days. But the Dolphins, they squeak out a victory in week 1. I think they have a lot of expectations on their season. For them to have started 0-1 would have felt very yucky. If you're a Dolphins fan, you got to be feeling good now. Just get a win. The Jaguars, I think, though, I think they're a better team than this. I think they got to feel very disappointed. Like you said, they should have won this game. They completely no-showed in the second half.
Yeah.
But one thing I found interesting is their rookie from last year, Tank Bigsby,
yep,
actually was the leading rusher for them today. Not that I think he's going to completely overtake Etienne's role in that offense, but definitely something to monitor in the coming weeks as we go through the beginning of the season. We could see a change in how they do things there in that offensive backfield.
Yeah, I mean, and for those of you who play fantasy football, it could be something you could go try and steal away, maybe Travis Etienne from somebody.
Absolutely.
So if you're feeling a little, wild. Okay, let's go to the last team, the AFC South, Spence. Let's talk about Tennessee at Chicago. I'm gonna tell you something, boys. Will Levis, I'm telling you, he's the next coming of Warren Moon for this team.
Man, no, you improve his wide receivers, you improve his offensive line, and what does he do for you? That pick six was one of the most disgusting pick sixes I've ever seen in my entire life. Will Levis should be ashamed for that throw that he made. Tennessee chokes a 17-0 lead, and they lose 24-17. To me, I didn't learn anything new about the Titans. One thing I did kind of have affirmed for me is, and we talked about this is not the Mike Vrabel Titans anymore.
No, it is not.
To me, they lost that dog, that grit mentality they had under Vrabel. To me, that is gone under Brian Callahan. I don't see that there. I don't know if this is going to be week 1 overreaction. We love to overreact to stuff in week 1. But the Titans are in trouble. I'm going to go ahead and say they're cooked. Week 1, put a nail in the coffin. The Titans are cooked.
I mean, I don't even know what to even say about this. I mean, okay. I mean, where do you want to start? Okay, Tony Pollard. If you're Tony Pollard, you look at your stat line: 16 carries, 82 yards, a touchdown, averaging 5 yards from scrimmage a carry. Okay, you did your job, cool. But then you go and you look. You paid Calvin Ridley, you paid Tyler Boyd. I will also say the Chiggy Okonkwo touchdown. Will Levis is lucky that was not an interception. That was a terrible decision to throw that football. And if I'm Callahan, I'm ripping him a new one. Doesn't matter that it was a touchdown. That is not a good decision. It's not a good decision. When have we talked about Chiggy being a guy that's good at catching the ball in traffic like that? He's not. It's not like he can't. But when you're Will Levis and you're already thrown 2 picks, in this game, and you get the touchdown. I don't know. Something about that, for whatever reason, that touchdown to me today, I went back and watched it multiple times, and I was just like, why are you doing that?
Will Levis today definitely gave me the impression that he was a guy that was trying to really make a statement, and he was trying too hard.
Yeah.
He was forcing the issue, trying to be the hero, really trying to make his mark, right? Have that moment in the NFL where he is the man and it's the Will Levis breakout season, and he wanted that moment and he was trying to force it. That was the vibe I got. But imagine holding a team to 148 total yards and you still can't get the dub, because that's what the Titans did today. Up 17-0, a pick six, a block punt that Mr. Biles, Jonathan Owens, took into the end zone. And just like that, that's a wrap. The Bears win 24-17, who are now on their way to NRG, who will play the Texans on Sunday Night Football.
I'm just telling you right now, if you're a Bears fan, shout out our boy, Mr. Joe George, who is a Bears fan. Caleb Williams looked bad. Like, not only did Caleb Williams look bad, if you looked at that stat line and told me that was the number 1 pick in the draft, I'd be like,
all right, well, let's pump the brakes.
Well, hold on. We're 14 for 29, 93 yards.
It's week 1.
I get it.
This is different than what we just talked about with Will Levis. We've seen Will Levis before. This was the first game for Caleb Williams. Let's pump the brakes. And hey, how about this? Oh, I'm going to spin it. He got the dub.
He did get the dub.
Caleb Williams, undefeated.
But not on his own accord. He can think his defense.
He's 1-0, though.
He better give that defense a fat steak dinner. And you better also pray up because you have got your hand. You think the Titans gave you problems? You're going to come to NRG with Texans hot off of a win in Lucas Oil Stadium. That place is going to be absolutely electric.
Yep, it's going to be rocking.
So AFC South, nothing's changed. The Texans are on top, and the Colts are in second place.
Yep.
So here we are. Obviously, we don't have time to go through every single game, but Sunday Night Football just concluded as we are as we are recording this. Detroit Lions, the Rams played. What are your initial thoughts?
Initial thoughts are the Lions are definitely going to be in the mix this year, but so are the Rams. I'm interested to see what the Rams are going to find out about Puka Nakua's injury.
Yeah.
We got to find out if that's going to be a long-term one, but the Rams looked the part. I love their defense. There was a lot of question marks on how they were going to play this year with Aaron Donald retiring. I thought they looked very, very good. They looked very dominant up in the front seven.
Jared Verse is as advertised.
Yes, Jared Verse is a very good player. He's looking good. But the Lions just squeak it out. I like how the Lions are utilizing their running backs. They are literally just giving Gibbs a drive, then Montgomery a drive, then Gibbs a drive, then Montgomery a drive, keeping them both fresh, letting them both get momentum whenever they're on the field, not subbing them in and out on a whim. I really like how Detroit is using those guys. And I also like to see Jameson Williams finally breaking out after all this time. We had been waiting for this moment.
Awesome.
That was an electric touchdown. The guy has it in him. Hopefully we see some more Jameson Williams going forward. But I think we saw 2 playoff teams on Sunday Night Football tonight.
100%. And I mean, if you guys listen to any of our content in the past, especially like during the Drafting Greatness series where we went over this year's draft class, and I felt like, or excuse me, last year's draft class, this year's, my expectations of the Lions were they were going to take a step forward with this defense. Like, I'm a big believer in what this defense has accomplished with Aaron Glenn, controlling them. He has gotten these boys up and going. The value they got from Brian Branch, the value they got from Lambert, like in the middle. The question was going to be Gardner Johnson leaving, going back to the Eagles. What was that going to do to the secondary? Didn't seem to be a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, the team, you made a comment, we were talking about this earlier, and you had said they looked smooth. They looked gelled. That's exactly what they look like. I mean, it looked like these guys last year, Aiden Hutchinson getting involved. I mean, they got all the pieces and they looked like they were kind of trying to put it together, young pieces, trying to learn, and we're still good. But man, tonight they look dominant. And the problem for everyone else in the NFC is that all that's going to do is continue to get better and better and better because it's only week 1. Another thing to note too for the running game for them also is a reminder, David Montgomery is still the number 1 running back for the Detroit Lions. 17 carries, 91 yards, and a touchdown. Did you expect Jahmyr Gibbs to be featured more?
No, like I said, they were splitting drives. Every other drive was each running back. I like it. How they keep one fresh and the other one comes back the next drive and keeps them both happy, keeps them both healthy. I like what they're using their running backs, and it makes it easier on a fantasy owner as well. Yeah,
and again, going back to the Jameson Williams thing, this is how this team needs to operate. So everyone's freaking out about Amon-Ra St. Brown not, being kind of non-existent in this game. I mean, I think one thing for certain is that that's a guy you want to take out of a game. So you got to remember, like coming in here, they're probably focusing as far as the receivers go is how can we keep Amon-Ra from getting the ball? So that's number one. The second one would be Sam Laporta. And then it's probably going to be Jameson Williams. So I think one thing for sure is Jameson Williams took advantage of that, I would say. But now you've got three guys that you can get this ball to through the air that are very capable receivers. And that's not, including the fact that you've got Jahmyr Gibbs in the backfield as well, who's great at catching the ball as a running back. So, yeah, I think both of these teams, like you said, I think they're both playoff teams. Hopefully Puka, for my sake, on my fantasy team, hopefully Puka comes and is just like a, minor injury. But yeah, it's been a great opening week for football. I can't remember a year where in at least the last 4 or 5 where it's been this good. So many great games starting from Thursday night kickoff.
You a fan of the new kickoff?
I am a fan of the new kickoff.
Yeah, I am too.
It's exciting.
It's working. What they introduced the rule with the intention to get more returns. And we got that today. We were up from 25% to 36% of returns. So we love to see those numbers. And we had a touchdown get returned.
Yeah. And also, too, for the record, this is now 2 years in a row where opening week we've had a special teams return. Because last year it was Monday Night Football with the Jets, Xavier Gibson. Remember that?
How could we forget?
Dear Lord. But yeah. So, guys, next week we're going to touch on some of the Astros playoffs, obviously, some of the Astros playoff expectations going into it. Maybe we'll probably touch on a little bit of what's the expectation of rotation, what does the lineup look like, getting Tucker back. So you guys can look forward to that. Obviously, being football week, we're all hyped up on football. You guys should be hyped up on football. Everybody in Houston should be excited for football because it's going to be a great year to be a Houston Texans fan for football season this year. So, all right, guys, Jeb Boyer, Spencer, Roland, Nolan, and we will see you guys next week. This has been the Athletic Decline Sports Show on ESPN 97.5 Houston.
Y'all take it easy.